Europe may have just changed the future of electric cars. The European Union is discussing a completely new type of small electric vehicle, one that could make EVs much cheaper to build and buy. Some say it could help European car makers survive against Chinese competition. Others say it could create Europe's version of Japan's famous K cars. And the name behind it? M1E. So what exactly is it? And could this finally make affordable EVs a reality? Hi and welcome to the GoE YouTube channel. I'm Amy, and for years Europe had small, affordable cars everywhere. The Ford Fiesta, the Volkswagen Up, the Renault Twingo. Simple, practical cars that made sense in European cities. But many of them are now gone, and not because people suddenly stopped needing small cars. They disappeared for a mix of reasons. Small cars became more expensive to build, while car makers moved towards bigger SUVs and premium models with higher margins. Safety rules, technology requirements, and emissions targets all cost money. And when a car is supposed to be small and affordable, there is simply less margin. So manufacturers move towards bigger cars. SUVs, crossovers, larger electric models. But here's the problem. Not everyone wants a huge EV, and not everyone can afford one. And this is where China enters the story. While Europe's small car segment was shrinking, Chinese manufacturers were moving fast. They scaled battery production, launched affordable EVs, and started entering Europe with models that often cost less than European alternatives. And that puts pressure on European car makers, because if Europe cannot build affordable electric cars, someone else will. The demand for cheaper EVs is clearly there. The real question is, who is going to build them? European manufacturers or brands from outside Europe? And that is exactly why M1E matters. M1E is a proposed new subcategory within the normal M1 passenger car class. Now, that sounds technical, but the idea is simple. M1E would be a category for small, fully electric passenger cars. Under the current proposal, an M1E vehicle would need to be fully electric, remain a proper passenger car, and be no longer than 4.2 meters, about 13 feet 9 inches. So we are not talking about tiny quadricycles like the Citroën Ami. M1E vehicles would still sit within the passenger car framework. The goal is not to create cheap vehicles with much lower safety standards. The goal is to make smaller EVs easier and more attractive to build, sell, and support. Originally, there was discussion around an even lighter category called M0, but critics worried that it could create a two-tier safety system on European roads. So the compromise became M1E. Still small, still electric, and still treated as a passenger car. But M1E is not only about size. The real power is the incentive behind it. Car manufacturers have to meet CO2 fleet targets. Under the proposal, a qualifying small zero-emission M1 vehicle made in the EU would count as 1.3 vehicles when calculating a manufacturer's average CO2 emissions, instead of just one vehicle. That sounds like a tiny detail, but for car makers, it can be a big deal because it helps them meet emissions targets and reduce the risk of penalties. But here's the catch. These extra credits are intended for small electric vehicles made in the European Union. So, if a small EV is built inside the EU, it could get this advantage. If the same kind of vehicle is imported from China, it likely would not. And that is why M1E is not just climate policy, it is also an industrial policy. Europe is saying, yes, we need cheaper electric cars, but we also want them built here. Several small EVs already fit the basic idea. The Renault 5 E-Tech is produced in France. The upcoming Volkswagen ID Polo, part of the ID.2 family, is planned for production in Spain. And the Citroën EC3 is built in Slovakia. Compact, electric, practical, and hopefully more affordable. These are exactly the kinds of vehicles M1E is designed to support. But this is where it gets interesting. Not every small EV would benefit in the same way. Take the Dacia Spring. It is one of Europe's cheapest electric cars, and it fits the small EV idea very well. But it is currently produced in China. So even if it matches the size and concept, it would likely not get the same super credit advantage unless the production or made in the EU status changes. The Hyundai Insta is another interesting case. It's compact, electric, and looks like a natural M1E style candidate, but it is currently produced in South Korea. So Hyundai could eventually face a choice: keep importing it or move production closer to Europe to benefit from the new rules. And this shows what M1E is really trying to do. It is not only shaping what kinds of EVs get built, it is shaping where they get built. So, who could win from this? The real winners could be the countries that already build small cars, like Slovakia and Spain. M1E could help protect jobs in places where compact cars are already being produced. But there could also be losers. Imported small EVs from China, South Korea, or other markets may have a harder time competing if they do not receive the same advantages. And for buyers, that is where things become complicated. Protecting European production might be good for jobs, but if it limits cheaper imports, it could also mean fewer low-cost options on the market. So the big question is, will M1E make EVs cheaper for drivers, or mainly just be beneficial for European manufacturers? The idea behind M1E is partly inspired by Japan's famous K-cars. K-cars are small vehicles with strict limits on size and power. In return, owners get benefits like lower taxes, lower insurance costs, and easier ownership rules. And it worked. K-cars became a huge part of the Japanese car market. So, could Europe copy that success? Maybe. But Europe is not Japan. Driving habits, taxes, parking rules, and city layouts vary massively from country to country. So M1E probably will not be a copy-paste version of K-cars, but the basic idea is powerful. If small cars use less space, less energy, and fewer materials, why not make them more attractive? That could mean targeted subsidies, cheaper parking, lower running costs, or city benefits. But those benefits would depend on national governments and local authorities. So an M1E car might be very attractive in one country and much less exciting in another. For UK viewers, there is one important point. M1E is an EU proposal, so it would not automatically apply in the UK, but it still matters. Many cars sold in the UK are developed for the wider European market. So, if M1E pushes manufacturers to build more compact electric cars for Europe, the UK could still benefit from those same models. So, could M1E actually work? On the positive side, it could make small electric cars more attractive for manufacturers again. It could help bring back affordable EVs. It could support European factories, and it could push cities towards smaller, more efficient vehicles instead of bigger and heavier ones. But there are risks. If the rules mainly protect European manufacturers without making cars cheaper for real people, then drivers may not feel the benefit. If the national governments do not add meaningful incentives, the category alone may not be enough. And if imported affordable EVs become less competitive, buyers could end up with fewer choices. So, M1E sits right in the middle of a much bigger debate: climate policy, industrial policy, competition with China, and the future of affordable mobility in Europe. The European Commission presented the Automotive Omnibus package, including the proposed M1E category, in December 2025. But it is not the final law yet. The proposal still has to go through the European Parliament and the Council. If adopted, the rules could come into force after publication in the official journal of the European Union. The super credit mechanism is proposed to run until 2034. So this will not change the market overnight, but manufacturers are already paying attention because car development takes years. So what is M1E really? It's not just a new vehicle category, it is Europe trying to solve several problems at once. Small cars are disappearing, electric cars are still too expensive. Chinese brands are putting pressure on the market, and European factories need a reason to keep building compact cars. M1E could be part of the answer. If it works, we could see more small, practical, and affordable electric cars on European roads. Cars that make sense in cities. Cars that do not need huge batteries. Cars that normal people could actually consider buying. But if it fails, it could become just another complicated EU rule that sounds good on paper but changes very little for drivers. So now, the real question is, will M1E bring back the affordable small car? Or is Europe simply trying to protect itself from a market that has already changed? Let us know what you think in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next video. See you later, guys. Amy from GoE.